Hi, so good morning. Is the mic working okay? Everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Good, good. So yeah, I hope the coffee that you're drinking right now is perhaps working, because I'm about to tackle what on the face of it looks like a pretty vast subject matter, and the reality is it is. We talked, quite a lot at the beginning, I think, about sort of how change has certainly arrived. We live in a world of change, obviously, working in an online environment. But I think, we're really at a tipping point right now, and one that really excites me, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a little while, particularly around how I think content can really lead the charge and ultimately capitalise on what these changes look like. So before I sort of move on to the actionable stuff, the stuff that hopefully you're going to get some value from, just a little bit about me. So as explained, I spent 10 years in the print world as a sort of journalist and magazine editor, and came out of that having sort of run my own sites, made lots of mistakes, to create Zazzle Media. And we're a sort of a content-led digital marketing agency. Yeah, we do sort of technical optimization stuff, but more importantly, we've sort of spent the last 4 or 5 years really pushing the whole content-led approach. To be honest, that's been quite tough at times. Talking to CMOs, CEOs, business owners, and their view as soon as we start talking about digital marketing is that it's SEO. So it becomes very difficult when you start talking about SEO to really sort of grab hold of budgets that actually, as a skill set, online marketers really should have, because their view is that all you do online, when you're looking at budgeting for online, all you physically do, link building, bit of meta strategy, and some on-page optimization. Understandably, they're not going to commit huge amounts of budget, and as a result, they're never perhaps going to achieve the results that they wanted to achieve, which is why a lot of people have bad experiences with SEO. To be honest, I've felt like this guy in a lot of those conversations. It's been really tough at times. We've really been pushing this content-led approach, having learned in that print media world how important content is to create long-term value and create audiences of value. The reason that we've sort of pushed this whole this whole strategy is really from looking back at all sort of mainstream mass media platforms, and how they evolved. So if you look at television, you look at print, and you look at radio, they've all sort of followed the same evolutionary process. So to begin with, the obsession is about the technology. So if you think about when radio first came around, people were just amazed the fact that this box was sat there talking to them. So the fascination was with the technology. Same with print. The fact that we could suddenly, on a mass scale, produce words and pictures was amazing. And the same with television as well. Moving pictures. Wow. Fantastic. But of course, after a while, the fascination with that just runs out. And it has to come back to the content. It's the only thing that keeps us engaged as human beings. Google has always known about this. The problem that they've had is struggling to find a way of scaling the solution to it so that we as online marketers can actually act as marketers rather than SEOs. The good news is that these guys are now in town. Now, if you own an online business, and I'm sure pretty much everybody here does, or you interact with them on a day-to-day basis, you'll know about Panda and Penguin, two fairly recent algorithm updates that have really targeted in different ways getting rid of spam. As a result, this is perhaps the reaction at Zazzle Media HQ. I think we really celebrated, because for the first time it really allowed us to do our jobs and really push this whole content thing with a reason for doing it. Obviously, Panda and Penguin hurt lots of people. Lots of people are still dealing with that issue right now. We do a lot of work with businesses in trying to help them out of that hole. But what we talk about more than the problem is the solution and what the future looks like. Because Panda and Penguin aren't just here to hurt businesses. They're not here to impact your revenues, etc., etc. Google has a much bigger plan for all this. They're fighting a much bigger war. And that is something called semantic web. So I'm not sure how many people have heard of semantic web before. Few people. So, very, very simply put, semantic web is a very different way of organising information. So right now, Google uses something called a document retrieval system for organising the world's information. So that works, you type a keyword in, it looks for keywords within documents, and then uses a clever algorithm to sort the hierarchy of those documents. Semantic web works in a very different way, and it doesn't look at websites, it looks at the relevance between documents, and more importantly, it tries to understand user intent behind a search query. So, nirvana really for search engineers is to do something like this, and this is probably a great live example of how semantics will work in the future, because this is where we're heading. So let's say I'm on my smartphone and I search for what's the weather in Birmingham right now. Clearly it's not 80, but anyway, we'll go with that for now. First thing they want to know is where I am. Obviously that goes without saying, but then secondly they also want to understand, well, why am I searching for what the temperature is, because there will be an intent behind that search. So based on previous history of my searching and obviously the other data that Google collects on me, they might know that, well, actually whenever it's this sort of temperature, whenever it's hot, this guy likes barbecues. He also shops at Tesco's all the time, so we're going to present him with Tesco barbecue offers. We also know that he's looking at garden ideas, so we might present to him some landscape gardening options, tell him about the latest offers at B&Q or something. So you can see that it's a very different way of presenting a search query, so it's not just about a single thing, it's about many, many searches in one single listing. So quite a different way of working. And the problem that Google has is that they're not very good at this. Years of sort of spammy link building and SEO have really muddied the waters for them, so they find it very, very difficult to understand these semantic relationships between documents. There's so many fake links out there that they can't see the wood for the trees. And then, of course, Siri. So Apple, as you know, has teamed up with a business called Wolfram Alpha. Wolfram is a very clever computational knowledge engine, as they call themselves, whatever that means. But they are built from the ground up semantic search engine. So they are very, very good at understanding the relationships between documents in order to get there. Google knows that this is the future of the web, so they're now fighting on several fronts actually, but Apple's probably the main front there, to get a cleaner web graph, a cleaner link graph. Their solution, as I sort of mentioned at the beginning, was Penguin and cleaning up those links. They weren't doing it simply to to really upset all those website owners out there. They were doing it because they're heading towards this goal of semantic web. For us, I think that it's a fantastic thing to happen, because it really means that we can start doing real marketing stuff. It means that we can, sure, we have to optimize the platforms that we exist on. That's always going to be key. But what's more important is to look at actual real marketing stuff, branding, promotion, and more, creating great ideas. So, what does the future look like? Well, not to want to plagiarise ideas, but there was a great conference presentation performed by a guy called Will Reynolds, who's a well-known sort of agency owner in the States. And he presented at MozCon a couple of months back on this sort of stuff that I'm talking about now. And for me, it was a real sort of tipping point, because it gave the sort of the point that we've been trying to make for several years, that sort of really big stage, so that the world's search marketers, the world's content marketers would actually start thinking about this stuff. It is no longer about that small technology-based stuff. It's about big ideas that really move the needle. He coined a phrase which you will find quite often trending on Twitter already, RCS, or real company shit. And his point around that was that, let's actually start doing some real stuff that actually makes businesses interesting. And to do that, content is really the key weapon. So I want to talk to you about what sort of big ideas actually look like, because it's all right saying, we're going to throw a few big ideas at you, you're going to buy our services and, everybody's going to be happy. The point of a big idea is that it moves the needle. It reaches new audiences that you perhaps haven't been able to access before. One of those ways of doing it, something that I'm really excited about right now, is data visualization. So many of you will probably have already used or be using infographics. That's really stage one of this data viz sort of march, if you like. We're doing lots and lots of really interactive stuff now, and the example here is one by Facebook. An intern at the Palo Alto company actually decided one day, as you do, to map every connection on Facebook and then present it really visually. So that's what you're seeing there, is not actually a geographical map, but the connections between users on Facebook. So you imagine doing this in a commercial environment. Something like this, hosted on its own microsite or something, is going to attract a lot of attention. Has a very good chance, as it did actually, to go viral, and will still attract a lot of links, which are still very, very important. Second big idea, viral campaigns, and of course, it's as big as it is long, talking about virality. But what we also know is that not all of us have the budget, perhaps, the foresight and the resource to be able to put somebody in a hot air balloon and send them up into outer space. Obviously, this went massive, the idea, by Red Bull, but the point is that we can all do it. The way of making sure that viral campaigns really hit the right note is in the idea creation process, and we're going to talk about getting that right in a little bit more detail very shortly. So, big idea number 3 is competition, and this is really where we start with a lot of new clients, because investing in content is actually a really scary thing if you've never done it before. It's certainly not as cheap as doing lots of other things that you've perhaps done online before, but I think the potential for creating real reach is much greater. So a great thing to do is to start with competitions. Competitions are good because ROI is very predictable. They always work. Yes, you might not want to win that. That's, although very interesting as it is. A lottery company in the States created that out of lottery tickets for somebody to win. Not quite know what the person did with it. But as a result, they got a massive amount of shares on Facebook, all that sort of stuff. So competition's a great place to start. Of course, all this sort of stuff that I'm talking about now is perhaps new. Content marketing is something that, yes, all right, it's actually been around for years, but in an online context, people are only just starting to talk about it. So it can be quite scary. With any problem, though, the solution is a great process. And what I want to do now is talk you through how we sort of sit down as a team and try and break that problem down to try and help people sort of move towards this process of creating great ideas. Very simple 4-stage process, and I'm going to walk you through each of those 4 stages right now. So stage 1 is about understanding your audience, and you'll see that this really is more traditional marketing stuff. There's a lot of that in here. Because a lot of people miss this. We often assume that we know who we're talking to, but not that many businesses, particularly when you're talking about the online audience that you're trying to reach, because often they're quite different to your offline audience, actually carry out specific quantitative and qualitative research to find out who they're talking to. So we spend quite a lot of time initially looking at, firstly, that sort of quantitative stuff, so reaching out and doing surveys, and all the stuff that allows us to collect a lot of data about the people that we're talking to. The bit that really gets me interested, though, I think, is the qualitative stuff, and that's sat where that lady is right now, if you've got the budget, and working with proper market research companies to sort of talk to sort of collections of your audience, to really understand the tonality and the colour and how they interact with your brand and how they interact with your products and services. It's really interesting for me because it helps you develop not just your content strategies, but also understand what position your product or service actually has in their daily lives. Stage 2 then is, once you've got this whole idea of what this big audience of yours might look like, is then working on personas. Now, I'm sure you'll have heard of personas. It's a basic way of breaking down an audience into constituent parts. So you can start to identify 3 or 4 sort of key, slightly different people or slightly different types of people within that audience. The reason for doing that from a content marketing perspective is because you need to make sure that you're creating content for all of those people. Tool's really useful and can help you break that audience down and understand it a little bit more. We talked about how to do qualitative research. Of course, social data is really, really useful for doing this as well. So I'm sure a lot of you will already have heard of social listening. And there are lots of tools out there right now that can help you sort of listen in to that sort of online conversation around your products and service. Problem is, not enough of us do it because it's quite time consuming, but it can be really, really valuable, especially as part of this initial stage of audience development. So the tool there that you're seeing is Social Mention. There are lots and lots out there. Works really simply. You simply type in the sort of keywords that you're looking to listen around, and from that it will help you discover who's talking about those things. You can then spend some time understanding the tone, the way that they talk about your products or service. So really useful. Then, of course, it's about trying to understand the associations between these different personas, so you can really start to clearly define those segments. Great tool for doing that is something by a company called Optimal Social, and they have a thing called Keyword Expander. And what you'll find is that when you're doing the social listening piece, you'll often find that certain segments talk in certain ways, so they'll use certain words a lot. You'll find out that they like certain things and don't like certain things. And what Optimal allow you to do is you can add in all the stuff that they like or some of the stuff they don't like, and it will expand that sort of data set for you, so you can understand more about what they like and what they don't like. So it helps you paint a better picture of the type of person you're going for. And then, of course, critical, making sure that that segment that you've analysed there is actually worth talking to in the first place. And that's, demographic sizing, really. So Facebook Adverts tool, obviously really great for that. And also Google's classic keyword tool as well. So 3 useful tools for helping you to sort of really define those personas. What you hopefully end up with is, as I said, 2, 3, maybe 4, hopefully no more than that, because it starts to get a little bit complicated. Key personas that you want to talk to, that you want to create content for in a sort of on a regular basis. The example that we've got here is for sort of a fictional gadget site. They've done that work, and what they've discovered is that they've got these 3 guys. So on the left there, we've got Gadget Geek. Now he's an older guy, perhaps doesn't buy a huge number of gadgets, mainly because he probably thinks that he can build them a little bit better himself. But he is an influencer. This guy is the sort of guy that perhaps a lot of other influencers may look up to. So really important that you talk to him to ensure that he's spreading your word and helping you improve your reach. The other 2 guys, though, are much more important for this business. So the grown-up gadgeteer in the middle there, he's the sort of middle-aged guy, and he uses gadgets to improve his quality of life the way he sees it. He has disposable income, and he wants to spend it on your stuff. So very, very important that you help educate this guy and engender trust, so he feels like you're the right place to buy this stuff. Then, of course, early adopter, he's always going to be around. He's the guy very, very sort of news-led, so you need to make sure that you're on that breaking news stuff, and you've got a content strategy specifically around that to appease this guy, because he's the guy that will buy stuff without even thinking about it. Forget research for this guy, it's just about having it first. So you see that those 3 personas have very different content needs. Before we move on, though, one thing that I think is really useful with this, because we do quite a lot of work with businesses, with sort of big internal teams around this sort of stuff. And one thing that they struggle with is to try and sort of disseminate and share the vision, the view on what these personas are for their business. So one tip that we give them is to try and align them to sort of celebrities or famous people. Because, of course, if you can say, okay, so Gadget Geek is, I don't know, Tom Selleck, and the grown-up gadgeteer is, I don't know, Johnny Depp. Obviously not right in that context, but it gives you and other people a much clearer understanding of the tonality of that person, how the way that they speak and the way that they're sharing ideas. It makes it very easy then to scale that across an operation. Then we get to the really, really key point, and because ideas are the lifeblood of any content marketing strategy, any content-led strategy, to be honest. And I could talk for hours about how we sort of work on that whole process, but the one takeaway, I think, is that right now at this stage, don't worry about what reality looks like. Reality often gets in the way of creativity, that's an absolute fact. So for now, it's all about getting down your ideas on paper. It doesn't matter whether they're absolutely crazy, whether they're going to cost millions. Right now, just get those ideas down. Because even if you're as mad as this guy, who thinks that, let's sellotape a few cardboard pieces to a car and try and drive into a hurricane, right now, whether it's going to work or not, it doesn't matter. The key is getting it down on paper. Of course, getting ideas down on paper, everybody's been in the room, haven't they, and gone, right, okay, so now we're going to think about some ideas, and of course, what happens? It goes really quiet. So I want to share a quick couple of ways that you can start to structure that brainstorming process now. And the first one is content flow. So content flow, massively important. If you look at any content schedule, they have very, very defined and well thought out strategies for how to connect different pieces of content together. Same with television schedules, same with radio schedules, certainly the case in the magazine world, and something that we've got to get better at in digital as well, I think, because great content should flow like music. It needs peaks and troughs. So if you think about your ideas in the context of having big and small ideas, it really helps break that brainstorming process down, because what happens is, of course, everybody goes, right, well, I'm going to impress the boss, I'm going to create loads of amazing big content ideas, and then we're going to execute them. Well, of course, all that happens is that you just raise that line further up. So actually, there's no impact, because you're always shouting. So, nobody really feels the benefit of all that hard work. The key is getting smaller stuff in there as well, so regulars. So things like regular blog posts, things like, your top 10s lists, all that sort of stuff that you can deliver consistently, but will then also help amplify the impact of the bigger stuff that you do. Don't do big bang, as we call them, big bang ideas very often. 2-3 times a year is more than enough. The point is, make sure that they're amplified by surrounding them with smaller ideas, so you get something a bit like that. Another great way of trying to structure that idea creation process is to look around for help. So obviously I mentioned that I worked previously in the magazine world, and it's a great place to steal ideas from, because of course these guys have been doing this for a lot longer. So Men's Health, great example of a brand that really understands its personas and knows that it needs to talk to them on a regular basis. So what do they do in their brainstorming? Well, they know that every month they've got to have a cover line that talks to the guy that wants to be the next Arnie, that wants to get bigger biceps, whatever that is. They also know that they want to talk to the guy that thinks he's going to be the next Steve Jobs, the next big entrepreneur. And then they also know the guy that, wants to get, better at sex, wants to be Russell Brand, for instance. They know that those three pillars, as we call them, are going to be there every single month. So of course, what do they do when they're brainstorming? Well, they have separate sessions for each one of those. Just makes it easier to start thinking about ideas. The next stage, once you have those ideas in place, is start matching them to content types. So until very recently, we used to literally just take a long list of big ideas, small ideas as well, and a long list of content types. So content types, blog post, video, infographic, ebook, it goes on and on. Then we came across this by the guys at Smart Insights. And it's a really cool sort of data visualization piece, actually, that helps you understand the relative strengths and weaknesses of different types of content. So as you'll see, if you've got an idea that is designed to be really educational, you might want to turn it into a guide or an infographic or a trend report. Whereas if you're looking for something that wants to entertain, then you might want to look at turning it into a quiz, gamifying it, or a competition or something like that. So it really helps you map the ideas to the content types in a really useful way. I think you'll find that on their website. The key bit, of course, then is throwing it into your 6-month editorial plan. This is a copy of the one we use at Zazzle. Quite happy to share this with anybody that wants it if you ping me an email afterwards. But intrinsically, it's just an editorial calendar with a few sort of key additions, which I'll talk you through right now. So at the top there, you'll see state of mind, something that's really, really important to think about, because of course, month by month, day by day almost, you know, as human beings, we are often in a very different place, especially around sort of specialist areas. So if we take this example of a fitness website, what are you thinking in August? It's going to be very different to what you're thinking in December maybe. So in August, you know, you're thinking, well, okay, so what you need to be thinking about is maybe losing those last few pounds really quickly so we can get into that bikini or into those swim shorts because we might be going on holiday. And of course, that thinking really should steer this type of content that you create in that month. So you're really thinking about what it is that your audience actually needs. Then we come to the big bang. So I talked very briefly about big bangs earlier. They're the big content ideas. As I said, don't try and do too many. 2-3 a year, sorry. That would be crazy. 2-3 a year is more than enough, but make sure that when you do them, you create separate campaign plans and you really hit them hard. Just so happens for this example that one of them falls into August. Biggest Loser 2012, so a big campaign around, as you've probably seen on TV, you know, who's going to lose the most weight. You know, you've probably been planning outreach for this for perhaps 6-8 weeks before this point, but so you know that there's going to be a lot of content creation during August around that. Then of course events. You know that as a sort of specialist company, and you know, ultimately we're all trying to target very specialist audiences online. Events are going to be quite key, certainly for a lot of people, and making sure that you know what's on when, so you can talk about them, perhaps even attend them is really key, because of course your audience is going to be thinking the same. So important that you capture those. Then we get down to the really critical piece, and that's the weekly and daily plan. So this is where we transplant those content ideas and content types into an actual plan of action. So in the example here, we've got the ultimate 10-minute fat-burning workout, ties into state of mind. You can see we're going to do it as video, and actually the sort of the primary platform is actually going to be Facebook in this example. Obviously then, 3 or 4 other months in other weeks, in that month, and what you get there is a real sort of realistic view of what you have to deliver. So then everybody knows, and everybody's sort of bought into the plan. Don't try and fill a whole 6-month plan with exactly what you're going to do, because things will change. Keep sort of perhaps the next 6 weeks as actually this is absolutely what we're going to deliver and this is what you should measure me on. And then, you know, the detail will perhaps sort of peter out as you move through the months. It's just then a case of keeping on top of it and adding in as you go along. So, covered a vast area, as I said, very quickly there, so there may well be some questions about that. I'm quite happy to take those in a moment. But before I do, I just want to give you a couple of perhaps more advanced tips around the sort of stuff that we're talking about, so you've got some real actionable insight. So, stage 1 is really about understanding that content flow piece, because it really is critical, and it's something I think that lots of people are getting wrong right now. We work really hard on trying to get content flow right, but what we really struggled with, if we're really honest, is actually working out had we got it right in the first place or not, actually understanding what it actually looked like. So to test it, we've come up with a really simple process called sort of content flow visualization. Really useful tool to help us do that is something called highcharts.com. So I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that site, but it's basically an open source website for charting tools and creating charts. Lots and lots of SEO tools and marketing tools use it because it creates beautiful charts that make complex data really easy to understand. What I really love about it, because I'm not a coder in any way, is that they have this really great editor called JS Fiddle that makes it very easy to edit and create your own charts very quickly. So all you have to do is click on the button, go in, edit a little bit of JavaScript, and you create something that looks a little bit like this. So this is content flow visualization for Zazzle as an example. And what you're seeing there is the blue is our blog content. So that's our content flow on our blog. The red is for our social content, and the green is for our sort of off-page content marketing stuff, so guest posting, that sort of stuff. Y-axis is really capturing how many hours we're spending on that particular piece of content, because obviously it goes to say, doesn't it, that if you're spending a lot of time on it, it's going to be a big idea. And then along the bottom, we've got actual time, so date. That could be days, could be months, could be weeks, whatever's most appropriate for your business. But what you can really easily see there is where those peaks and troughs are. And what you're looking for is flat spots, because you might feel actually that we need to do some more activity in one of our channels there. So for instance, the one you're seeing there, content marketing, we might decide we need to do another big guest post or another big piece of data viz or something that we can really do a lot of outreach on to ensure that there's some amazing amount of brand visibility and we stay above the line. So a great way of really understanding whether you're getting content flow right across all those different channels. Flow tip 2 is something that I've yet to share, so this is the first time having done that. And it's really about reverse engineering magazine strategies. So obviously, as I said earlier, magazine editors, magazine creatives have been doing this sort of stuff a long time. They understand how to get content flow right, how to get content strategy right, because they live and die by doing exactly like that. So great tip to do and to create a content strategy really easily is to sort of pick up a great magazine. So I think this is an example of a recent Wired, and to go through it schematically and understand, well, actually, what are they trying to create here? What are they actually creating? And capture the different content types. So as you can see there, they've got an advert on the page there, but then on the other page they've got list feature, quick Q&A, interviews. So you can really capture quite easily something that ends up looking like this. So the magazine flat plan, as it's called. And of course, as you work through the magazine, you'll capture more and more of this, and you'll understand how they've really got the content flow right. And of course, all you then need to do is transplant your ideas into that flat plan. And of course, what do you end up with? Well, an expert and really easy content strategy for your, for use online. So great little tip.